Thank you all for coming. Okay, my name is Dave O'Brien. I spent over 40 years around here at Holy Cross, but I retired 14 years ago. Like you, I'm amazed when I come back at the size of the new buildings. They really are big, aren't they? But I'm so grateful for the great work of the college's faculty, staff, and students. Shortly after I arrived here in 1969, the Jesuits across the world made the historic decision to make what they called a preferential option for the poor and renew all their work in the service of faith and promotion of justice. Their leader at the time, Father Pedro Arrupe, summed up their renewed direction in the work of education as seeking to form and support each other and their students to become men for others. We changed that here to men and women for others. Some of us on the faculty over the years translated that into the exploration of meaning, mutual obligation, and engagement for the poor, with the poor that you'll find in the Holy Cross mission statement, now almost 35 years old, I think. And it's a mission statement that faculty and students and staff have actually used. So that's the words we used, a little more neutral. But the students held on to that vision of men and women for others, not just here, but in every Jesuit campus. And they never let it go, men and women for others. One reason they did that, I think, was that it carried forward the struggles of the 1960s, when many students had already decided to live out that kind of mission of service to others as peacemakers and justice seekers, some with life commitments to the Catholic Worker movement, whose members have pursued that men and women for others mission since 1933. This year, here in Worcester, we've been celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Mustard Seed, Worcester's Catholic Worker community, founded in 1972 by two former Holy Cross students and their friends. As part of the celebration, Catholic workers from across the world are gathering here this weekend. Some of them are graduates of Holy Cross and are with us here this afternoon. Here they are. They and other alumni who cannot make it are people who decided to see that what might happen if they made a life commitment to that option for the poor, which in the Catholic Worker movement involves voluntary poverty. One student, former student, loved to tell the story of how he came home and told his hardworking dad on the eve of his graduation from Holy Cross that instead of pursuing a career, he'd be joining the Catholic Worker movement and practicing voluntary poverty. He likes to describe the look on his dad's face. We smile at that story because we knew that it worked out okay for his family, but it said something about how serious these commitments can be. When I arrived here at the height of the Vietnam War, many students suffered through painful conversations with their families when they decided to be conscientious objectors to the military draft. Then and now, as men and women for others, for all others, including so many thrown to the sidelines by our society, and the others, including you and me, who are not Catholic workers, but try as best we can to be their companions and friends. You have in your hands distributed a short statement of Catholic worker commitments and a set of short biographies of our guests, Holy Cross alumni, people who have committed themselves to the Catholic worker movement over the years. To lead them all, and all of us and them in a conversation, I turn to a Catholic worker well known and loved here at the college, my friend Frank Kartheiser, one of the founders of the Mustard Seed, a community organizer, and a Catholic worker lifer. Frank will help you put a face on those biographies and then ask a question or two to get us started. Frank.
Thank you, David. Did everyone get the bios and the Catholic Worker is a pacifist anarchist movement, and so we don't have all the bios. You know what I mean? It's just like, screw you, like, take your old bio. So we got some bios back. But we do have the aims and needs, so I hope everyone has a copy of that. So maybe I'll just go down the line. First, our good friend Michael Harank, class of 76, I'm pretty sure, and is out here from Oakland, the Oakland Catholic Worker. So great of you to be here, Michael. Thank you. And our good friend Rich Bishop from Bitterroot Catholic Worker in Montana.
All right. Thank you.
George Horton from the New York Catholic Charities and working on the sainthood of Dorothy Day. Thank you, George. Our good friend Matt Harper, all the way out from Los Angeles, class of 2011, and came back and ran a couple of great classes for the students. Didn't he do a good job?
Just say yes, it's okay.
And our friend Harry Murray is here, class of 73 from Rochester. And he just connected today with Bill Murphy, also class of 73, so the two of them. Well, we have a rose among thorns with us. So we have Teresa Wheeler here. Really appreciate her being here from the class of 83. And two from 73, and then Scott Schaefer Duffy from Francis and Therese Catholic Worker, class of 1980. Thank you. Give them a hand, would you, folks? We're so glad that they came in and came back just for this moment. I know it's a tough time, a Friday afternoon. That's why we only made it an hour. We were going to ask them to tell us about themselves, but it would just take too damn long, as you might figure. So, but the first question, I'd like to ask a question. Not everyone has to answer it. Don't be redundant. People can chime in as well. If you were asked by the college to serve as an advisor to a student or students, of which we have a good group in the back, what advice would you give them about their education and their vocation? Good, you're looking at me like I should have given you the question I had.
Well,
all right. Well, go ahead, you want to start?
so, again, we're
Do we have a
from, my
mic
wife and I are here
a
from,
movable mic?
Does this mic work?
I'll talk loud. Well,
Go ahead, keep talking. We'll see if it
I
works.
think that mic is, yes.
Oh, great.
And maybe stand up.
Stand up.
stand up. So I'm here with my wife Sharon, and we run a program for homeless families in Washington, D.C. called Mary House. And credit to her, she has an all-volunteer staff running the program for over 50 families at a time that would provide housing to food, shelter, so forth. And every year she takes 3 AmeriCorps people off ideal lists, trains them for 2 weeks. They spend then 10 months before they go back on their own way. But part of the important thing that we feel at Mary House is trying to give the young people a voice and an experience that they could take on. And a lot of them actually go on to get their masters in social work. So we're very committed to helping young look to the future.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Greg. Scott.
I would just say to everybody here, especially the young people, all of us from time to time hear the still small voice that comes into our minds and our hearts and tells us something is not right. I should do something about that, whether it's poverty or war or sexism or racism. That will happen. And then there'll be other voices to say, what will people say? What will it do to my QPI? What will it do to my finances? And all kinds of things. And this little voice is asking us to take up a cross. And here at Holy Cross, of course, that's particularly pertinent. And going to live in voluntary poverty, going to jail for peace and justice, going to war zones, this is a leap of faith. It's a lot of crosses. But I can tell you, after all these years, the gospel tells us, Jesus, when he invites people to take up the cross, he says, don't worry about the results. It'll be given to you, good measure, overflowing in your lap. You will get, when you say yes to that still small voice, overwhelming happiness. I found the love of my life. I have 4 wonderful kids, 6 grandkids. I've been in 23 countries. I've been to the Vatican. I've been to the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, as a, not as a lawyer, but so much is possible, and so much is available. And I worked in a nursing home, and the people that were the most miserable in the nursing home were not the people that were the sickest, or the people whose family came the least. They were people who had regrets. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. And those that lived saying yes to that little voice, they were content. Don't be one of those people to come to the end of your life, like Thoreau says, and realize I had not lived. Live. Say yes. Make this world a great place.
Matt, class of 2011. The only reason that I am here today, I think, maybe that's a little extreme, but one of the main reasons is I had classmates at Holy Cross whose experiences were completely counter to mine. Students who experience this world as folks of color, women who experience this world in a different body than I did. And for the longest time, I thought I was listening to them, and I thought I was understanding their stories. And thanks to a lot of complex, hard conversations, I realized that I hadn't been, despite my best intentions here at Holy Cross, despite the work I had done here. The shit that we think and see out in the world is here too, and it's in us too. And the healing that came from facing it, from working with it, and building relationships of substance has transformed my life and has made me cast away some of the things that I never thought I would throw away in my life. And kind of to Scott's point, is it has changed everything. And in turn, I try to make sure that Holy Cross takes the same values that they tried to instill in me seriously, because we say a lot of nice things, but we don't always do them. So be courageously impractical, and they won't lead you wrong.
So I noticed when Frank introduced everyone, he said what class they were in. He didn't say my class. And I was here before David and graduated in 1967. And it wasn't a man and woman for others at that time, it was the Holy Cross man. And there was a great emphasis on success, achievement. And I look at my classmates, and they've achieved enormous, enormous things. One of our classmates wrote a reflection for the class at our last reunion. And he talked about the values of compassion, of listening, and of being able to accept your weakness, that your weakness in some sense was your strength. And I think carrying that forward in our lives is very important. Dorothy Day, and again, the great privilege in my life has been working on her canonization. Time and time again, witnesses reported, she asked them, "Who are you? Who are you?" And as Scott was talking about, that still small voice, I think we have to ask that question all through our lives.
I don't know if students have the Jesuit Junior volunteers and experiences there, but my experience for some transitional situations for people wanting to know about the Catholic worker and maybe getting involved with homelessness and programs where you could go after you graduate would be through that program. And they're also working with AmeriCorps. I think somebody was just
AmeriCorps,
AmeriCorps. And I think that's a nice transitional way if you get out and you want to have some discernment to look through them, and you will find resources. In Montana, I don't know if they'll be doing it this next year, but over the last 10 years, we've been mentors for the program for the JVs out in Missoula, Montana. And it's been a wonderful experience for most of the people that have done that. And that's a good way to maybe get your toes wet if you wanna, go, instead of jumping in full head, and taking that big leap of faith, and saying, oh, I don't care about college loans and all that. It might be a nice way to check that out.
Yeah, my first acceptance at Holy Cross was in 1971, although I was in the class of, ended up in the class of 76, and the reason I declined the scholarship and the entrance to Holy Cross in 71 because my older brother Andrew, who had studied here at Assumption College, and met Dorothy Day and Mike True and the Berrigan brothers, they influenced his decision to leave the seminary and to resist the draft as a Catholic conscientious objector. So when I got the news in March or April of 71 that I was accepted, I was the first one in 3 generations to go to college. And with a scholarship, I said, how can I go to college when my brother is about to be sentenced possibly to 5 years in prison? And up to that point in my 10, 11 years of Catholic education, I had never heard of the Catholic Worker. I had never heard that there was a patron saint of draft resistors. I had never heard of, the people who would impact my life for the rest of my life. So I declined the acceptance, and my parents were quite upset at that, and my friends, they couldn't understand it, but I went back to Arizona where my brother's draft board was, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And it's then that he introduced me to the Catholic Worker, to Dorothy Day. He told me stories about his meetings with them here in Worcester when he was a seminarian student studying at Assumption College. So my introduction to Holy Cross was, I wrote a letter saying, hey, this is what I've been doing over the past year. I've become a draft counselor. I've been involved in peace vigils against war at the local Air Force Base. I've studied and been introduced to the War Resistors League and other people. And so I would like for you to reconsider my entrance back into Holy Cross, because these are the things I would love to study at Holy Cross. I would love to deepen my understanding and expand my knowledge of them. And the admissions director, whose name I can't remember, I think his first name was Jim, wrote back a letter 3 weeks later, said, welcome back, Michael, and gave me everything back. So I arrived in 1972. And at that time, I think there was a sense of the vocation of peacemaking. There's such a concentration now on the practicality of university and college education. Get into a program where you can make money. You don't, or get a fine job or advance in society, I think. And, to me, that's a way of understanding a job, but it's not a way of understanding a vocation in the Christian sense. It's a call. It's the call to the small voice that you listen to and then you respond to. So thanks.
Thank you.